It was Christmas Eve 1971. In Lima, the skies were blue, the air heavy with holiday anticipation. None imagining disaster. Among them, Juliane Koepcke, the 17-year-old daughter of two German biologists, Hans Wilhelm and Maria Koepcke. Raised at the edge of the Peruvian rainforest, Juliane spent her childhood exploring the jungle her parents studied. Juliane knew the rainforest, its plants, animals and dangers better than most adults. But little did she know that later that day, this would literally save her life. Juliane and her mother were flying to Pucallpa, where her father awaited them for Christmas. Later, Juliane would recall a sense of unease. Her mother worried about flying with LANSA, an airline with a poor safety reputation. But tickets were booked. She had no idea she was about to star in the worst possible version of Home Alone, 35,000 feet above the Amazon. They boarded and the flight went ahead. Their fate sealed. Now it all seemed fine and good, but minutes into the flight, disaster began to unfold. At 21,000 feet, the plane flew straight into a massive cumulonimbus thunderstorm. And these are known to have vertical winds that can rise faster than 100 miles an hour, causing violent turbulence. All of a sudden, a lightning strike hits the left wing. In seconds, the Lockheed Electra begins to tear apart. The wings and tail rip free. The fuselage shatters into pieces, with Juliane and her mother Maria violently separated from each other. Juliane would later recall seeing her mother's last moments during the separation of the fuselage. Maria's body was never found. But records indicate she perished in the crash, along with 90 of the 92 people on board. Juliane, still strapped into her row of seats, is hurled into the open sky, 3 kilometers above the Amazon rainforest. The air around her is thin and turbulent, the temperature barely above freezing. For nearly 2 minutes, she plummets through an electrified tempest, rain, hail, and roaring winds tearing past, before the jungle below begins to rise up to meet her. At this point, most people's travel complaint is bad turbulence. Hers? Freefall. Now, normally, a human in freefall hurtles to the earth at nearly 125 miles per hour. At that speed, the body meets the ground with the violence of a car crash against a brick wall. Limbs do not merely break, they snap, bones piercing through skin. The rib cage crumples inward, lungs rupture, and the heart can tear free from its vessels. The skull shatters like porcelain, with the brain colliding against bone with fatal force. At this speed, the human form is reduced to broken flesh in an instant. Survival is impossible. However, the wide frame of the seat caught the rushing air, dragging her speed down, halving the violence of the incoming impact. Below, the Amazon canopy stretches 30 meters high. Branches, vines and leaves peel away speed like a giant cushion. So instead of hitting solid ground with lethal force, Juliane is slowed layer by layer by wood, foliage, and finally, the soft jungle floor. By some miracle, Juliane's fall ended not in instant death, but in the narrowest margin of survival. She suffers a broken collarbone, deep cuts to her arm and a concussion. Her right eye is swollen shut. But she is conscious. Juliane was now stranded in the Amazon rainforest, her body already torn and bleeding. Every wound was an open invitation to bacterial or fungal infection. Flies circled her injuries, laying eggs that hatched into larvae. Within days, her right arm became home to maggots. Her wounds oozed. Again, this was the Amazon. Venomous snakes and spiders, along with hungry caimans and jaguars, lurked at every corner. Each step carried a new risk, as her body slowly broke down in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. But Juliane grew up here. Her parents, both biologists, taught her survival. It was simple. Follow water downstream. It always leads to people. There was a glimmer of hope. So for 10 days she drinks from streams, eats nothing, and pushes through biting insects and leeches. Her arm wound festers with maggots. But by sheer luck, she stumbles on an abandoned hut, finds gasoline, and pours it into her wound, forcing the maggots out. Finally, on the 11th day, Juliane stumbles into a group of lumberjacks. They put her in a canoe and paddled her to safety. Out of 92 passengers, 17-year-old Juliane was the only one to walk out of both the plane crash and the Amazon rainforest without so much as a guidebook. She had wrestled death in its terrain. It was no fair fight, but she'd won. A victory that didn't need to be flawless to be unbelievable.